So Dane, not to let them in too far behind the curtain, but it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded our last one.
Been a minute.
I was actually, for some reason, super jovial and optimistic this weekend. I don't know what it was. Might have been the fact that I took 4 days off for the first time in, I believe that's called a coon's age.
That will help.
Not a racist thing. Look it up. Anyway, but I've just felt myself more positive and with a brighter side of humanity this entire week. And I don't really know what it is, or I can't put my finger on it, other than just that little break in the normal humdrum of war, death, destruction, famine, war, death, destruction, famine, rape, war,
death, because you weren't talking to me for an extended period of time?
Might have been. We might have had.
I have a way with people.
He does. It's like, oh, you're having a good time? Check this out. Like, oh. I was smiling for a second, and then you took that away. But no, with this week with Princeton and all the other, the big talking points is Cornell, Princeton, all these very upright, George Washington, all these places are having anti-Semitic people. I almost did the fingers. I won't do the fingers. We'll just call it what it is. They're coming on and the whole byline is like, can you imagine this amount of anti-Semitism in our society right now? It's like, yeah, I can. When you make something as egregious as an echo chamber in a place of higher education, and you don't let any other, conflicting thoughts in, when that's the whole point of the fucking place in the first place, is to allow dissent and then challenge bad thoughts with good thoughts and good thoughts with bad thoughts and so on and so forth till we come to a really good thought that we can all agree on, that we move forward with. Mm-hmm. Instead of doing that, they've been just saying, you have to agree with me or else you're a Nazi. Well, it's just funny how that particular vein of thought led inherently to going completely full circle and them actually becoming anti-Semitic, much like the people they shouted down for being like.
Wait, but makes sense. Wait, what are we talking? Because I thought we were talking about how you were having hope in humanity. This doesn't sound very hopeful.
If you know me, Dane, multi-layered.
Okay, I didn't know there was a backstory.
I'm not a one-layer dip. Okay. You don't just get cheese with me. You get 7 layers. You get bean on 2 of them.
Let's get
beans on 2 of them. Not necessarily the same type of bean, by the way,
Come on, let's go. Artichoke. I like it. It's good dip. It's got a lot of cheese.
You, of all people, are complaining about me being long-winded. Okay,
I can see how that might be a little bit of pot and kettle scenario.
It's an interesting juxtaposition, I'll say that. But my point being is that I don't believe that those are the main thoughts and criticisms of the entirety of the population. What I boiled down to, and I had a moment of clarity this week, is like, we only ever hear from that bell curve, we only ever hear from the 5% over here and the 5% over here. And I have every amount of hope within that 90% of the bell that they're just like us, you and me, not necessarily libertarian or see the world exactly as we see it, but we see the world for what it is. And there's just lies covered in truth, and all we're doing is trying to make our way through the world, and we still adhere to our principles. And I feel like this is like the turning point. This is like the last bastions of anti-Semitism. Can you believe it? We had to do something about it. And when people go, no, we're not anti-Semitic.
You're thinking this is kind of like a darkest before the dawn kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it can't get much darker being on the verge of World War III and nuclear holocaust. I mean, that's pretty much...
It can get...
That could be the final chapter. It can
stop being on the verge of it and just be a full-blown... That could be the final chapter.
But, speaking of which, too, I had a little eerie moment. I was driving home on Monday, and I saw just like a rocket, like jet propulsion in the northern sky going northeast. And I was like, I had a moment where I was like, is this it? Do I need to find my bomb shelter? Is that the first one of the rockets that have been launched? But it turns out it was just like Elon shooting off some SpaceX shit from Florida, and I just didn't know about it. Thank God. Thank God, by the way.
So wait, which part of this whole story gave you the hope in humanity?
The first part, the rocket thing, the Rocket Man thing was
So it wasn't something happened like you needed a helping hand and a stranger came and did it or anything like that. It was just you were sitting there contemplating.
Listen, I can open my own pickles by myself, Dan.
And you're like, really, there's not, most people are not that bad.
Yeah, I don't think most people are as, I don't know, easily swayed as a lot of people are that you hear from most often. Does that make sense?
Fair enough. Well, I'm on that train with you because the memes will be shocked to learn that actually I'm the more optimistic of the two of us, generally speaking. I'm the more.
You wouldn't tell it by the way. You couldn't tell it by the way you talk.
I know. I'm the much more generally faith in humanity and all that kind of stuff. But for a different reason, I actually think the opposite of you do. I arrive at the same conclusion, but from the opposite direction. Whereas you're saying the fringes out here on these two sides, and then most of us are kind of in the middle, being generally not too bad of people and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a Pareto efficiency situation, the old 80-20 thing, where, if you own a business, 80% of your problems are caused by 20% of your workers, but conversely, 80% of all your productivity comes from 20% of your workers. The same kind of thing. Is I think that the 20% of humanity that are the creators, the innovatives, the people that are really solving the big problems, they are enough of a driving force for the roughly 8 billion of us that the other 80% of us that are walking around screwing everything up on a daily basis, they'll save us from ourselves.
Okay, I guess I would agree with that, but I would say like the 80% that you're referring to, all they need is like a general direction, and most of them would help in that general direction. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like,
right? I'm saying they're not most people are good, then more people are good than
it's
bad.
Just like I'm not like if I'm not useful right now, I'm just going to go do what I want to do. If you need me, call me. But I'm just going to go over here and do what I want to do, which is innately human in and of itself.
That I'm fully on board with, and for the same reasons.
Right. Like
I think most people are generally good.
Yes.
They're not saints. We all have our flaws, but they're just trying to do their own thing. You wouldn't
want to look up their search history. Just do yourself a favor. Don't ever ask your son or your daughter what they're doing in the room late at night. You don't want to know. And number 2, never look up their search history. If I've helped you parent. There we go. Never look up her search history.
Well, she's not going to have access to any of that stuff ever. I'm going to raise her
Amish. You're going to raise her Amish.
Yeah.
Good. Better start learning the German.
They seem to have some good things going on for them in their community. So
yeah, such as inbreeding and...
That is a myth,
General
David. There's enough of them.
There's tons of people dying, clamoring to get into the Amish communities.
More and more each day.
That hot blanket coos that they're trying to get.
David, I will not hear any ill talk of the Amish, okay? They're just out there.
They won't either because they're not going to see shit of this because they don't believe in any of this.
They're just out there doing their own thing, not bothering anybody else.
As a libertarian, all about it. They're not fucking with anybody else.
Anyway.
We aren't fucking with them. I can still make fun of them, though.
Anyway, we've already talked about incredibly low rates of cancer and other, long-term health consequences.
Which is why I can make fun of them as I'm dying of cancer. Look at you idiots. Don't even have Wi-Fi. It's like breathe fossil fuels my entire life. Anyway.
All right, yeah. Let's get into the happier stuff.
Right, let's get into the real chipper stuff. So we got meme destruction this week, and we've got a main topic, which I think we have a main topic every week, right? That's the one that we're not getting rid of.
I mean, pretty much.
I mean, you have to have a main topic, or else what are we just fucking wildly swinging in the dark?
Anyway, it's chaos over here.
Swinging wild, Francine. Anyway, Republican cancel culture. Who would have thought?
Just as virulent and moronic as anything you'd find on the left.
Just less, Lizzo.
Yeah. Which I guess makes it better. I guess marginally.
It's easier to look at. I'll tell you that much.
That is for sure.
Jesus. At least they put some blondes on their goddamn telecasts and shit.
Yeah, that's true.
Some push-up bras. What was that little virulent, like that little fucking
I don't think virulence the word.
No,
you're
it
looking
wasn't.
For,
it was
but
vicious. That little vicious blonde from Texas, like
Tommy Lauren.
there you go. Hot as the day is long, but she is just a viper.
Good. We're not talking about Tommy or belongs on Fox News, but David.
One of us isn't.
David has digressed.
Anywho,
that'll be meme section for the cancel culture. Anyway, on to the main, brother Maynard.
The main taxes. It's not your money, it's the government's. And you'll see why. Stay tuned.
They'll make sure you know it, even if you try not to know it.
What?
You try to be oblivious.
I try not to know most things.
It's like that funny joke where it's like, "Hey IRS, how much do I owe you?" And they're like, "Well, you figure that out for yourself." You're like, "Can't you just tell me? Can't you just tell me?" You're like, "No."
Kick open your door.
Well, what happens if I get it wrong? You're going to jail.
Armed agents that were just there to find, big companies' tax evasions. That's the only reason that they were there.
Anyway, so we ready to jump in?
Say the magic words.
Are we ready to jump in? Are those magic words?
Those are the magic words.
Let's jump.
Okay.
Welcome to Weapons and Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 170, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/170. You can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction, and you can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. I believe we are fully back on YouTube. I have confirmed it over the last week or so. So
don't call it a comeback.
We're fully back for now. I don't think we're outside of our 90-day window of getting one more strike and we're perma-banned.
Been here for years.
But we're doing okay. As a matter of fact,
rocking our peers.
You know what we should have talked about in the pre-show? We should have talked about we treaded so close to the line, we just about got perma-banned. It's good. Nameless Faceless guy is gonna throw them up here. I've already sent them to him because we got emailed from YouTube over, I believe it was the last week.
They love us.
About how they didn't give us a strike because it wasn't in the video itself. But one of the links to one of the articles we put in the show notes for
is from MS.
Was it was like 167 or 166? Which episode was it?
It was the one about I believe it was the Israeli intelligence overseer said that they were aware that there was an imminent threat, and then he came back and said that there was no way we could have seen this.
Well, that like the Israeli government failed in protecting from the attack and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we've talked about this on the show, so you're already aware of this. But we go out of our way to intentionally pick sources that are generally from mainstream. Occasionally we'll have, the gray zone or so, like we shared a couple of those articles during the Nord Stream pipeline situation, or, we'll share stuff from the Mises Institute and all that kind of stuff, which are not mainstream sources. But generally speaking, we're sharing stuff from CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox News, to the extent that that's also mainstream, MSN, blah, 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 right? And why do we do that? Two reasons. First, to steel man the other side, because they can't come back and say, equate our sources to basically taking Alex Jones at face value. No, we're quoting your own mainstream media back to yourselves. So when you're completely baseless on whatever claim you're trying to make, or you have a pie on your face or whatever, it's a little bit harder to attack the credit. Of course, those sources need their credibility attacked because the mainstream sources are nothing but propaganda factories anyway, but not to the people that would object to us. That's the first reason. Second reason is to not get in trouble with the censors. You can't, come down on us too hard, or at least we thought until the last week, if we share an article from, MSN. And that's what happened, because we shared a couple articles in our show notes under those videos from MSN, and YouTube said, we understand that this was I forget what the exact thing was, like it was inadvertent, and that's why your channel isn't getting a strike. It was so patronizing and patriarchal in terms of like they were talking down to us like, we understand you're just a stupid kid, so we're not going to give you a strike. But this article is essentially fake news is what they called it. It was misinformation. And we're like, well, wait a minute. Did you say the same thing to MSN? Did you call the editors over there and say you shouldn't have published this information? Because we were sharing you direct. Oh, and that's the other thing. The articles had direct quotes of the people. So like when we said that Netanyahu in 2019 admitted to supporting Hamas because he wanted to use them as a wedge to keep people divided in Gaza, so they never had to come to the negotiating table. It had direct quotes in the article, and that was misinformation, according to YouTube. So I can't keep straight which is the mainstream source we're supposed to get our approved information
Well, I can tell you what.
Apparently, it's not MSN.
I can tell you how we swim in these shark-infested waters.
With the current?
You just keep saying, yep, absolutely right. There's nothing to see here. Take your 27th thingamajig. I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want another ding. It is cold and flu season, so if you're looking to get, why not roll your cold and flu shot in with your immunity booster shot?
Get all of them at the same time.
All 27 of them, just right in your trachea. Just tell them to put it, screw the arm. It's right here. I want all the protection I can get. Janis Joplin. So anyway, all I'm saying is that's what we should do. We should come out with a study that says if you mainline the jab, you become a god of 19. And that may or may not buy us some time. Or maybe we should call this the tongue-in-cheek podcast and just say all the things that we don't believe, but after every segment we go, like
you
that.
know, you might be onto something, because a close cousin of not having any humor is the inability to spot sarcasm. And so, as we all know, these people not only can't meme,
Tanya McGrath.
they're not funny. So they wouldn't pick up on the type of sarcasm that David is referencing.
Right. Titania McGrath was the best at it, but she, he, it, they,
whatever that
are
person
no longer
is.
with us.
Are they not? Are they not on Trump's Musk's X?
They got. I think he's from Britain, or maybe he just discontinued it.
I was going to say maybe, because I don't think
it's a thing anymore, because too many people got inside. Because too many people started to see the inside joke and it fell apart.
Anyway, we are way deep into this episode without getting into the topic. So
that's actually not a bad topic, that we bring up the current events in our lives.
Yeah, that was like a little mini culture corner for you.
Yeah, we almost weren't here anymore.
Yeah,
and that's as close as we are.
Fortunately, we just got a slap on the wrist and not an actual strike, and so that's why
I'm sure they gave MSN a strike, though,
of course,
for misrepresenting.
Yeah,
and they're taking him off their
and they're banned from posting. Nobody can post or talk about anything from MSN.
And all the people that reported
on
on that article are now fired.
Of course.
In perpetuity. They can't report on anything ever again.
Because false misinformation is an attack on our democracy.
Don't you know, Dane?
MSN.
Don't you know?
So anyway.
The more you know.
That's that.
Come on, Mr. Nameless Faceless Guy. Get that star going over my head.
That's that, Mr. and Mrs. That's that. So let's get into the meme segment. And today we're talking about this is kind of like a twofer in the meme segment. The first half of the segment is just the concept of cancel culture, and I think that a lot of people, the meme that's out there in society is cancel culture is exclusively belongs on the left. It was created by the left, and only the left, engages in it. And the right, basically stands on their tradition and their principles and pushes back against cancel culture because they're the free speech advocates and all that kind of stuff. Well, if the ongoing crisis between Israel and Palestine did nothing else, it should have disabused you of this notion that cancel culture is exclusively a creature of the left, because as the left uses the R word, racism, to
you have to define it nowadays,
to cast anybody out of polite society, to say that they're not worthy of a dignified response, to do anything except engage with the ideas of whoever is being attached with the label of racist or racism. The right has its own version, and that word is called anti-Semitic. Because when the right says that, you need to give nothing other than absolute and unequivocal, full-throated support to anything the Israeli government does, and that to suggest otherwise or to criticize it in any way, shape, or form is the same thing as being anti-Semitic, which, by the way, is just racism by a different word, just by a particular group of people, then you're anti-Semitic. And that means that your ideas hold no validity whatsoever because you're an evil, terrible, no good, very bad person. And because they hold no validity, we don't have to engage with them. You are not entitled to a response. And you're just going to be smeared, run out of the conversation. And if we're doing really well, run out of society and canceled because we've labeled you anti-Semitic. And that is the right's favorite scare word in this context. And so just let it be known once and forever that the right is not against cancel culture any more than the left. They just have their own version of it.
Oh, that's indicative of both sides of this. And right when I was feeling optimistic about humanity, you go and drag me right back down into the muck and the blood in the barrel with it. Yeah, I become disheartened with how easily these same tactics work every fucking time they're deployed for the same people. And again, in one moment, the same people that are super pro this war are saying this is an egregious, this is their 9/11, we need to stand with them. Like, it's so, how many years do the Jews have to be persecuted? Like, they all want our heads on a plate. And then in the very next breath, they're saying, we need to bomb these other guys into oblivion. It's like, what? Like, do you not get the fucking irony there? Do you not see what's happening there? I understand that it's tumultuous. I understand it's a very emotional time. And if you have anybody over there, again, on weapons of immune destruction, we've said it multiple episodes in a row. If you have anything to do, any family ties, any loved ones, anything attached to this particular war, we have nothing but our deepest sympathies with you and emotional support. However, we don't support, what's that called again when you wipe out an entire
genocide?
That's it. That's the one. We don't support genocide. We don't support war. We don't support blowing up other people because people blew your stuff up too. Again,
and when you strip all of the scare words away, when you strip away racism, when you strip away anti-Semitism, you get down to the root of the whole thing. And the root of the whole thing is the fact that collectivism as an idea is cancer of treating people as groups, in groups, and collectivizing the guilt or the virtue amongst the entire group of people. And that's really what is the most abhorrent about the concepts of racism, or like truly, genuinely held. Like, because again, there are actual, self-avowed racists out there that will say, I am X race, you are Y race, I am better because I'm X and you're Y, and that's it. And there will be people out there that say that, Jews are the fault. Everything bad that happens in the world is their fault, and everybody else is innocent victims, and blah blah blah.
Not us.
And the reason why those are abhorrent ideas is because they're premised on collectivism, and the idea that because one person or even a small group of people do something bad, that everybody else who we can even tangentially place inside that group is worthy of the same punishment. And that's just not only is it completely immoral, it's illogical. There's nothing to support it other than blind emotional rage and hatred. And it's no more valid for anybody that says, I'm doing it for white nationalist reasons or whatever some, actual racist wants to do it for. It's no more valid for that person to do it than for the Israeli state to say that I'm going to indiscriminately bomb men, women, and children because a group of these people that happen to live in this geographic area, did something really bad to my people in my group. That's never going to be justifiable, no matter how many ways you want to cut it, no matter how you want to rationalize your own behavior to yourselves and to your friends and supporters. It's not justifiable. Every child that dies, and again, I'm using child just as kind of a proxy for complete and total innocence. You don't have to be a child to not deserve it. You can be a man of, as they say, military fighting age, living in Gaza, but have nothing to do with anything Hamas does and not support them, and you're just trying to live out your daily life and take care of what you need to and provide for your family. And if you wind up the victim of a bombing, you are every bit as innocent as the child next to you. But to use the child as an example, every child that dies as a result of an Israeli bomb is just as lamentable and terrible and tragic as every Israeli citizen that was killed by the Hamas attack on October 7th. Why that's somehow a controversial thing to say, or why you're, as Ben Shapiro would say, oh, well, we're morally, making the two sides morally equivalent. No, it's a universal truth that if you are innocent of doing anything wrong, you are not worthy of whatever punishment is doled out to you. Pretty simple stuff. That cuts across all cultures and all time, is that if you don't deserve the punishment, it is unjust to punish you. And the only way to arrive at that conclusion as to who deserves what is to treat individuals as individuals, not as groups. When you start engaging in collectivized guilt, and then you start justifying punishment towards a bunch of innocent people that didn't do anything wrong, even if you feel you're justified in retaliating against somebody who attacked you, let me be the first and last to tell you, that's not morally justified. I don't care how you want to try to help yourself sleep at night. It's just not. And that doesn't make those of us who say things like that anti-Semitic or some other bad word, to just point out that a wrong is a wrong is a wrong, no matter who does it and for what purpose. Sorry, not sorry.
Well, I didn't know that you're going to tie it up back to where I started so succinctly, but that's basically the concept that I was getting at. It doesn't take much just to draw a line. Every time you see an other, every time you see, they always try to break you down into other groups, but you don't see it for, well, if I'm morally justified and I'm with this side, then it's okay that I blow them up because they don't exist because they're bad guys. Like what an infantile way to look at life, to be honest with you. And I doubt anybody that watches this program or this podcast or anything, or listens to this podcast, would fall into that trope. But if you do, take a second, make a difference, reflect on that. If you caught yourself saying that, you know what, it is time we just wipe them off the face of the planet. Well, what a privilege. Again, for the first time, I will agree with the woke class that what a privilege that it must be to be American. To just say, we should just wipe them off the planet, because we don't ever have to worry about them saying the same thing about us and them actually trying to do it. We don't have neighbors. Imagine Canada was our greatest adversary, and every now and again, Wisconsin just got the shit bombed out of it. Then we'd have to go bomb Quebec because they say A at the end of our. They're Nazis. Did you hear them say A at the end of it? Oh, they like maple syrup. Jesus Christ! Outlaw maple syrup in the United States. That's how stupid this fucking thing is. It's like, you're right, Dane. Whether they were decapitated by
a knife or a bomb,
Hamas, or blown to pieces by a drone strike, the child is still dead. How many reports do you hear about the Palestinian children that have been blown apart?
Far less than the imaginary and 40 babies or whatever it was.
Before this just gets clipped or sent, or not that we're important enough to get clipped. Now,
in the future,
isn't this a weird fucking position that we're in? We're not important enough to get clipped, but we're important enough to get canceled by YouTube.
Entirely.
Entirely.
Yeah.
What a weird fucking existence. We're Schrodinger's cat. We are literally Schrodinger's cat.
Is this podcast alive or dead? Who knows?
We're both. But anyway, before he gets clipped, I'm not saying that I side with Palestine, obviously, because I don't want to get canceled. And I don't either. I think all human lives are human lives, regardless of whatever boundary or superficial line that's been drawn in between this side, whether you're a North Carolinian or a Virginian or a Israeli or a Palestinian, like, you're still a human. You still have the right to life. And to denigrate life, as we've seen it happen time and time again, and we're not, as a country, devoid of doing that too. Look at what we did with the terrorists. They wasn't even a fucking country. They were just terrorists. Well, what makes them terrorists? They hate freedom. Like, do they hate freedom, or do they just hate the policies that you've enacted over the past 50 years that have torn their fucking country apart? It seems like they're pretty mad at you, government. And it seems like they want to get back at you, government. So why don't you go fight your own war, government? Oh, you can't, because you need us to go do it. How fickle. So how are you going to get us to do it? Oh, you just dehumanize them and say that they're not real humans. They're other people. They're this thing. They're the Taliban. They're ISIS. They're terrorists. Oh, they hate our way of life. That's why we got to go kill them. It's like so infantile. We live.
And some are, and those that are deserve whatever punishments that's going to be doled out to them. But that's exactly why, we shared the Murray Rothbard article from a couple of weeks ago about war, peace, and the state. Is that, like I said, when you read that short essay, when you come apart or when you come back from that, maybe you don't agree with it, and then that's why it doesn't move you at all. But you cannot deny the stone cold logic of the fact that because modern conventional war is incapable of not creating mass collateral damage, individual human beings that are completely innocent of whatever was the cause for the launching of the war in the first place, it's impossible not for those people to get caught in the crossfire with modern conventional weapons. Therefore, every single war is unjustified. If you want to go after and you want to eradicate Hamas, which is, the refrain from, everybody from Warhawks all the way to even the middle of the pack that is just afraid of the A word and being labeled anti-Semitic and run out of society, that say, oh yeah, they have every right to just wipe Hamas off the map. To the extent that goes as far as the people who are actually in Hamas and perpetrated the acts, go for it. You know what that means? That means individual, door by door, boots on the ground, trying to find out who is truly Hamas and who isn't. And to that, when you say, oh, Dane, that's just naive, and that would just get too many, Israeli soldiers killed and all of that kind of stuff. That's the burden. That's the burden. If you are going to say that an entire, and by the way, let me back up for a second and say all of that is to even give you the benefit of the doubt that it's even possible to quote unquote wipe them off the map. Because again, you're not attacking people. You're attacking an ideology, and an ideology can't be killed. Because even if you killed every single living human being on this earth, that strap them to a lie detector test and they'll admit, yes, I'm a member of Hamas and I agree with everything they do or whatever. You kill every single one of those people, you're going to have all their cousins or children or whatever that are going to join the ideology tomorrow.
Isn't that how Christianity spread in the first place? All these fervent people were just murdered in front of people, and they're like, well, fuck, if they're that into it that they're willing to die for it, that's the best fucking marketing that you can do. Maybe I should be into that God. So again, it's the Hydra. You start pursuing this like a fucking child, you're only going to dig yourself further down this hole that you're never going to come out of.
Exactly. So listen, you got three things to consider here. First of all, you're never going to kill an ideology with bullets. So get it out of your head. Second of all, if you're going to retaliate against something like that happened to Israeli citizens, which again, the reason why it happened was a failure of the Israeli government to protect its citizens. So if we're pointing fingers, at least as many belong in that direction, because they failed at the one thing that they're supposed to do.
Don't counsel
or
us.
If not the one thing, the primary thing that governments are at least understood by most people At least that's the argument for why governments are morally justified to exist, is that they protect people from things like that. But the Israeli government failed. But that's neither here nor there. Is that if you're going to retaliate, it is your responsibility. If you're going to claim some sort of moral high ground, it's your responsibility to do the difficult work of going individual by individual and finding out who is worthy of the punishment and doling it out accordingly. This indiscriminate bombing of swaths of people doesn't give you any sort of moral high ground. It just makes you the same as the other side. And, I talked for too long and forgot what the third thing was. But, and I'm not going to try to stumble my way through it. I'm going to kick it over to you and see if I remember.
You want me to bail you out?
Yeah, I was going to try to stumble my way through the third thing.
I wasn't planning on picking up the ball and running with it now.
Well, now you got to.
But
come on, Bo. Head to the end zone.
5 points of pressure. Here we go.
I remember what it was now.
See, that's all I had to do.
That's all it took.
5 points of pressure.
That's all it took. Is the third thing is, okay, if you're not happy with that because you think that puts too many Israeli soldiers' lives at risk to have to engage in a boots on the ground sort of door-to-door campaign of figuring out who the bad guys really are, then what is that? What's the end solution? What's the goal? What gets us from point A to point B of where everybody wants to be, where Israeli citizens are living next to Palestinian people and everybody is in harmony? What that takes is sitting down and talking to people. And again, I can already hear the war hawks and the naysayers. Oh, that's naive. They don't want they're Hamas are genocidal maniacs, and they'll never sit down and talk to us. And the people in that group are. You're going to sit here and tell me that all 2 million Palestinians living in Gaza think that? No, I think a lot of them are upset about the living conditions that they've been forced to live under, and being told that any of their legitimate grievances dating all the way back to the early 20th century, where they say, hey, you came in and stole a bunch of our land, and we think that that's wrong, and we hold some grievances based on that. You're going to have to sit down and treat those grievances seriously. You're going to have to talk about them. You're going to have to figure out what can be done to make sure that the radicalization doesn't continue. And again, if you just want to throw your hands up and say, I refuse to talk to them because they're, irrational, crazy people that just want us all dead, and we've already talked too much, you haven't, or your government hasn't. And then that gives us a blank check to never talk to them again. You're entitled to that opinion, but then don't come crying to the rest of the world wondering why this stuff continues as people generation after generation after generation continues to be radicalized. It's not just because they're crazy and irrational people. There are also legitimate grievances that are not being addressed. So if you want safety and security for your own people in the region, it's incumbent upon the leaders that are there from both sides to sit down and talk. And until that happens, the bullets are going to keep flying.
I would just sum that up by saying, if someone says that you can't talk to somebody because they're irrational, warmongering, what'd you call them? Sociopaths.
Yeah.
Usually the person shouting that the most is the irrational, warmongering sociopath, or stands to make a lot of money off of the war that they're trying to start, and they don't want to talk. They don't want to have a caveat to assuage that huge windfall. Is it called a windfall? When you make a large sum of money all at once?
Yeah.
It's a windfall. So they don't want to miss out on that windfall. By the way, there's so much rhetoric about canceling AR-15s in this country. Why do you need 15? Why do you need 15 rounds? Doesn't that seem like crazy? Why? No human should have 15 rounds. How many people die from assault rifles in this country each year?
No,
compared to how many people die from a bomb made by Raytheon, or a bomb made by Lockheed Martin, a bomb made by... So why don't we outlaw them first? Why is that legal for them to do when they can wipe out hundreds of people in one?
Well, because David, don't you know that when all of those people over there are dying, those deaths don't count.
Oh, that's right.
That's how that line of logic goes.
Anti-Semitic. and they deserve to die, or they hate freedom and they deserve to die,
or any other number.
They're
of
Nazis and they deserve to die, or
cheap,
they're
convenient
Russians and they
cancel
deserve to
terms
die.
that
How many
allows you to cancel
renditions
them
can we
from the
go
face
through?
of the planet.
How many times? Right, Korean they deserve, Vietnamese they deserve to die. Right, yeah.
That's how that works. So, you'll have to pardon me, Christian evangelicals that are super, gung-ho about just, turning everything that's not the current borders of Israel into a parking lot and then just letting Israel annex it and, rebuild it after the fact. You'll have to pardon me when you try to say that, oh, well, this is what's required for the end times, and I'm going to be the one that gets raptured and taken up to heaven because I supported the indiscriminate bombing of innocents. Something is not really aligning with that.
I think Jesus said it best. I think Jesus said it best.
Yeah. When they smack you,
make sure you bomb
them.
all the brown people before I come back, because I don't want to be. Ugh. Yeah, I think he said that in Matthew 20:26, right?
Yeah, that's just
you fucking idiots. And then not the hubris to think that you'd be raptured. If there's one thing that tells me you're not going to get raptured, is the thought that you think that you're going to get raptured. Pride cometh before the fall, my friend, you fuckhead. enjoy your annihilation with me. Or what is it called? Armageddon. Enjoy suffering through Armageddon with me, a chronic masturbator and idolater. All right? Your pious ass. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not a chronic masturbator.
All of that notwithstanding, I gotta think that cheering the indiscriminate bombing of innocent men, women, and children.
Pretty sure Armageddon's a bad thing, right? Is the end of humanity?
If there's anything that's a disqualifier from getting to heaven, I'm pretty sure that's it.
I love Jesus so much, but fuck all those brown people over there, wipe them out. Jesus is like, you know what? I like his panache. He's got a little zazz with him. I like his zazz. So, anyway, all that being said, indiscriminate bombing aside, taxes, Dane, your favorite subject.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that can bring a there's one thing that can bring a government that's disinterested in its people together, it's taxes.
Yeah, because never forget, you are the cattle. They are the farmer. Head off to slaughter and don't be mooing on the way in.
And don't tell the farmer's fucking wife what we did in the barn the other night.
It's back on the topic of Israel because again that has completely captured almost every aspect of the.
We're not going to discuss the sunny slopes of the sands of Capistrano.
No,
where the salmon flock to.
No.
Oh.
Although there might be a tax tie in there if there's rich people out there, and we should.
Where the women flock to, like the salmon to the sands.
They have more money than us, so it's okay for us to steal from them. Oh, that's how that goes.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Robin Hood.
Just generally how the argument goes.
Can I be Robin Hood, or do you want to be Robin Hood?
You can be.
Okay,
I'll be the.
Who's the big bear in that episode, or in the Maid Marian? Albeit a fox. Quite foxy.
Whatever David's talking about.
There's a Disney movie called Robin Hood, and they're like foxes, and I think the same bear from Jungle Book is the friend of Robin Hood. I forgot, not that
I know what you're talking about.
Or what? Yeah, he was what I'm talking about. You see, he plays dumb, but he knows. He just doesn't want you to know that he knows that I know that he knows.
Anyway, we're talking about the Republican bill in the House that was put forward earlier this week, where Biden asked for $14 billion to go to Israel to help with their war against Palestine. And Republicans, seeing an opportunity, said
Palestine or Hamas?
Because again, there is pretty universal. Well, I mean, it's against Palestinians broadly speaking. It's not just against Hamas, but the Republicans decided, well, we're going to use this opportunity to kind of stick it to Biden. Because again, make no mistake about it, that is very, very bipartisan for reasons we won't talk about on this podcast. The support for Israel and why everybody is all for it, virtually to the letter, if you're in Congress or in the federal bureaucracy at all. But the Republicans decided they would be a little cheeky with it and said, all right, we're not against giving money to Israel, despite the fact that we're $33 trillion in debt and we're supposed to be fiscally responsible. But if we're going to do it, kind of at least winking and nodding to our fiscal responsibility, we need you to cut $14 billion from that infrastructure bill that you gave all that money to those IRS agents for like 80,000 more of them that you said were only going to go to take money from the rich and not any of the poor or middle class. More on that in a second.
They take away percentage.
Take 14 billion away from all that money you were going to give to the IRS, and that's what we'll give to Israel. That way we don't got to print more money and go further into debt. Well, the Democrats in the House and Biden himself were completely incensed by this proposal because for all of their principled stances about pro-Israel and we got to do whatever it takes to help the good guys win in this thing, just let you know, when the rubber meets the road, all of those principles are out the window if they think that they might be able to steal less money from you, the American people, who they're supposed to be legislating on behalf of, but wind up just taking money from you or printing it out of thin air and stealing from you silently through inflation so that they can fund whoever their buddies are around the world. In this case, Israel. But so yeah, the Democrats not happy about this Republican proposal, but the week progressed.
If only they do that more often. Hey, do you think we should send this $34 billion to... Well, let's take it out of the IRS. Well, let's not be too hasty, guys. Like, all right, well, let's fund this new project that's going to, delegitimize this. Oh, that sounds fine. But maybe we should cut back on all of our salaries, seeing as we're making so much money in the stock market by insider trading with all the legislation that we're passing. Maybe we should do that, huh? Or maybe we should contribute at least 1 million of the dollars that we've all made fiscally to the whatever fucking is on the docket that day. But our money that we pay in every year, that we have to pay in, as Dane noted, or else we go to jail, they're more than willing to just spend that willy-nilly. Carte blanche. Yeah, we'll take a second steak. I'm not going to eat it. Put it in a doggy bag. I'll feed it to my dog when I get home. Don't ask me what I'm doing with it. It's none of your business. It's just your money. Like, if only this could happen more often. But again, the only way that it actually happened is by one side being kind of a dick and calling the other side's bluff, and the other side obviously countdown, because when the going gets tough, they get going nearly every time. So yeah. I don't know. Hey, is it still 44 trillion?
33.
44. Projections. How quickly do you hit 44?
I'm going to say by, what is this, 2023, I'm going to say 11 trillion. Definitely by 2030.
2 years.
I'll say 2028 on the low side, 2030 on the long side.
You're giving them way too much credit than I would. Because don't forget, we're about to go into 2. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. And we're going to be funding both of those to the tunes of billions and billions.
Yes, if the World War III really pops off, or even more fires start around the world that we have to always fund, then it could happen. I guess we should say
if there is 2026,
right,
or 2028, or 2030,
right. So and again, us just because they said the quiet part out loud, did the Democrats? Don't let that shade over the fact that the Republicans are also unprincipled hacks too, because again, they have been rightfully so screaming every single time a vote comes up to give money to Ukraine, and they've been on the right side of history. I hate that term, but or that phrase, but they've been on the right side of history in terms of trying to stop that. Well, how much they've really been trying, I don't know, because it always seems to get passed. But on this one, they're saying, no. We're happy to fund another foreign country in its own, excursions.
Again.
But we're just gonna, play some, shell games, some parlor tricks about where the money comes from. Again, if you are being principled about your fiscal conservatism, you wouldn't just say, let's just move the money from here over to here. You would say, no, I am a legislator in America. I was elected by American citizens to legislate on behalf of the best interest of Americans. And even if I fall for all of the bullshit arguments that propping up Israel is actually in America's interest, which again is a highly dubious claim in light of that alliance getting us into all the trouble it does around the world, especially in the Middle East. Even if we abide by that, if you were going to say that I need to legislate what's in the best interest of the American people, well, when you're $33 trillion in debt, continuing to spend money, no matter where it comes from or for what cause, is not legislating in the best interest of the American people. Again, they voted for you, allegedly. They are paying the money, either directly through taxes or you're stealing it from them on the back end through inflation. They are the ones who have their own problems in terms of veteran homelessness, in terms of the victims of the Hawaii fires, in terms of the victims of the Norfolk Southern train derailment earlier this year, the victims of hell, the
Going to a public university nowadays.
the lead pipes from several years ago, Flint, Michigan, that still don't have help. You know, there's a whole laundry list of American citizens that are actually hurting. That if you're prioritizing things, remember, you're elected in America, not in Israel,
West Virginia,
not in Ukraine, not anywhere else. So if you're doing what your mandate is to legislate on behalf of the American people, then when you're ranking your priorities, that has to come somewhere near the top. And to the extent that you're not doing that, Republicans, and you're trying to give yourself pats on the back by saying, I'm taking it from the IRS and giving it over here, again, that's just a smoke and mirrors game. That doesn't mean you're sticking to your fiscal conservative principles. But all of that being aside, we have, and this is kind of the last thing that, you know, I want to tie up this segment with, is this lower than room temperature IQ response from the people who say that it's irresponsible to take money from the IRS and you know, give it to Israel, and we should just print a brand new 14 trillion and give it to Israel.
Because the first time we did it, it went so well.
Is they say, well, actually, the deficit is going to grow even greater if we take that 14 billion from the IRS, because that makes it harder for them to enforce. And that means more tax cheats are going to be paying less tax revenue. And so the less money that comes into the government, the deficit explodes. Again,
this is the part of the episode where Dane's head blows off.
These fucking people,
I warned you,
always look at one side of the ledger. Always. And they always say, well, you didn't let us steal more from you, and that's why we're going into deficit. And never countenance the fact that they're the ones on the other side of the equal sign are the ones that are exploding the budget. How we are always the ones at fault for not paying more than we already do, and they're never the ones at fault for spending so far outside of not even their means, our means. The money that they stole from us. We give them north of $4 trillion a year, and they can't find a way to pay for all of the things that they're allegedly supposed to do to be working on our behalf, the American people. They can't figure out a way to do all of the things that they need to do for us in $4 trillion. They spend more than that every year running a deficit, and as it racks up over time, you wind up with a $33 trillion debt, public debt. So again, when somebody tries to make this argument to you that because the IRS has less money, that means less people are going to be paying taxes, regardless of whether they're rich, poor, or middle class, kindly tell them, as disrespectfully as you possibly can, to go fuck themselves. Because that argument is less than an argument at all. It's special pleading on behalf of what you want to have done. And what you want to have done is just money spent on whatever your pet projects is, and who cares who it comes from, because you're just going to moralize all day long and say, well, the rich aren't paying their fair share. You're not entitled to that money. Your politicians are not entitled to that money. And so if they steal less of it, good. The thief got less money. Everything after that is a resounding from the echoes from every bow of the Grand Canyon, a go fuck yourself to eternity.
That's succinct.
Yeah, right.
I don't. And again, if you think that that's true, let's steel man that argument. Let's just say that there's like 5 people in this world that think that that statement's true. That if they take that much money away from the IRS, that they won't be able to collect all the billions of dollars in tax revenue that they're losing from gigantic corporations. When was the last time that happened? When was the last time you saw any headline saying JP Morgan gets a letter from the IRS that they owe $200 billion? Or is it more or less Stan from across the block got a letter from the IRS that he owes 20 grand in back taxes from 2020? The year that they printed said money to bail everybody out because they were worried about all of us. But then I believe we go back to my orange grove in Ohio and the cotton gin in South Florida that got $26 billion for...
No, it was potatoes in
that's
downtown
right.
Miami.
Right, potatoes in downtown Miami. That's right.
Oranges in Illinois and potatoes in Miami.
You couldn't even get it right. You guys couldn't get first grade geometry. I almost said geography. Geography is what I meant. I almost said geometry. But my point is that whenever you hear a politician say, "We're going to start taxing these rich," oh, you mean the same rich people that are putting him in that seat that he's saying he's going to get in the seat and then tax the people that paid for him to get there? Again, we're not infants anymore. This is real life with real consequences. So wake up, all right? As the 2-time would say, wake up. This isn't black and white. This is real life with real consequences. You need to be smarter than you were yesterday, or you don't deserve to see your tomorrow. That's all I'll say.
And listen, last thing from me, not that you needed proof of this, and to the extent that this is proof, I'm not saying that it is absolutely, connecting all the dots, but when we talked about many episodes ago, I couldn't even begin to pretend that I know what number it is, but when all of that money was going to go to the IRS and it was going to hire about 80,000 new agents.
Oh, Jesus, that was a while ago.
And David and I talked about how, those 80,000...
Armed agents, by the way, don't forget.
They're always armed. Is that those 80,000 new agents weren't going to be going to knock on Jeff Bezos' door. It was going to be going on to knock on you and your neighbors. Is that fast forward, I have at least 4 family members or friends currently that are undergoing tax enforcement. People saying, they're not large sums of money. Like one person, the IRS says that she owes $11,000 from 2021 because she didn't report enough on her taxes.
You sound like an elite. They are a large sum of money.
Okay, $11,000 is not an insignificant amount of money. But I'm not. When I say large, I'm talking about who these dipshits claim their 80,000 were going to after multi-millionaires or billionaires.
We're a podcast for the people, so we are of the people. So for us, it would be a lot of money.
Right. It would be a lot of money for anybody. But when they said, these 80,000, it's just going to go to enforce against all those really rich tax cheats. And I think the Biden administration claim was nobody over less than $400,000 can expect for this to impact them at all. It's just people that make more than that.
You mean those corporations that have entire fucking levels of gigantic skyscrapers delegated to a fucking legal team to find every nook and cranny they can exploit to get out of these taxes?
Again,
and loopholes?
Maybe it's an absolute coincidence that when all this extra money funneled to the IRS and they allegedly hired all this new staff, maybe it's a coincidence that the 4 people in my personal life, maybe some in yours. If you do, tell us about it in the comments, is that now all these enforcements are starting to happen and they're starting to either find money that they did that was owed to them from the past, or they didn't give returns that they were supposed to in the past to people down at our tax bracket. Again, maybe that's just coincidence, or maybe, people that were, had two brain cells to rub left together knew exactly what this was going to be, and that it was going to be more enforcement against us, the middle, lower middle, and poor classes, not against the wealthy, who, by the way, in addition to the wealthy that David is saying, funds all their campaigns, they themselves, the politicians, also become wealthy based on fraud, bribery, insider trading, you name it. So you really think they're going to have the IRS knocking at their doors? Probably not. But again, they're willing to tell you that it's your fault if you don't want the IRS to have more money to enforce stealing from you.
So any Joe Blow Schmo walking down the streets of New York on any given day, if you put a microphone in his or her or their or its, I don't want to play
the game.
I don't want to play this game.
Yeah.
If you put a microphone in their face and ask, is Nancy Pelosi insider trading? I'd say 8 out of 10 people would say yes.
Yeah, if they knew who she was.
80,000 extra agents to go figure that fucking shit out?
And oddly enough, they still haven't figured it out.
Do you think that she's reporting it on her taxes? Oh, by the way, I insider traded and made $20 million in escrow. Come for me. No, she's not. And they aren't. So again, it's another symptom of what's good for thee is not for me. So, or what is for thee is not for me. It's not necessarily good. But again, they're placating you. They're insulting you. And I guess my whole bit for this entire goddamn episode has just been they're insulting you. They're insulting you, and they're insulting your intelligence with the way that they're talking to you, treating you, and telling you the information that they're telling you. That's it. So if you take nothing else from this episode, you should just walk away from it by saying, listen, I'm not going to let them talk down to me anymore. I'm going to be my own person. I'm going to critically think, which I may or may not have been doing for the past couple of years because I've just been just been sidetracked by my life and trying to live that. But, what's that old phrase, Dane? The price of freedom is constant vigilance.
Mm-hmm.
So if we all know that there's corruption and debauchery and all that good stuff up on Capitol Hill, why are we abiding this anymore? Why are we letting any of this happen anymore? Why are we playing this? All I'm saying is don't play the same game that you've been playing for the last 200 years of this country.
Apathy and complacency are the twin deaths of freedom.
There you go.
If you don't care enough to do anything about it, and if you're just a little too comfortable to do anything about it, you're going to wake up one day and it's going to be completely gone. So let's hope that that day doesn't come and that we all do something about it before that day comes. But,
that's not a call to violence. But anyway, now that my faith in humanity is restored to my doubt completely, my doubt in humanity completely, where can they find this illustrious soul-killing episode of Weapons of Immune Destruction Podcast 170?
They can find 170 at wmdpodcast.com/170. They can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. They can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. I don't think we've said anything cancelable in here, but who the hell knows?
We don't know.
They can also link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, private members only Facebook page over on Facebook at $5 a month or more of support. If you want to get in there, just go over to wmdpodcast.com, the support our work tab, and you'll see all the donation options for how to support the show. You can also donate to us directly at our Bitcoin wallet, which the address for that is down in the show notes and the both on the website and under the videos here. And then you can also, you definitely should join all of the other ways to keep in contact with the podcast, which is, again, over on that email list at wmdpodcast.com. Just join up for that. So you can always stay in contact with the show that way. And then you can also text any old thing you want to 610-596-WMDP. That's 610-596-9637. Give you up-to-date alerts about the show, when episodes drop, when we get banned or nuked off of a platform. And sometimes, you just get texted funny things that'll brighten your day. So do all those things, but most importantly, like, subscribe, share, comment, do all that algorithm food stuff. But most importantly, please, please, please tell your friends and family about us. Help spread the word about the show, because nothing helps more than just growing the sane space along with us.
With all that being said, stay wise, Gamgee. Until next week, stay safe. More importantly, guys, stay free.